Okay. Well, we're live. We're live with Learning Together on November 29th, 2017, episode 379. Keep piling them up since 2010. And I'm talking now with Shelley Terrell, one of my favorite authors and online sharers, I should say. She's just written a book. Let me see if I can show you the book. Here we go. This is her book. I've been reading it, taking it to bed with me. And it's called Hacking Digital Learning Strategies. And it's actually a very interesting book. And it's basically about a lot of really interesting tricks. Well, I should say activities. It's very practical. It has activities for students to engage them in all aspects of digital literacy. For example, making lessons out of selfies, make a startup company, these kinds of things. So there's lots of collaborative, interesting things here that Shelley's going to tell us about. I had a look at her slides, and I know she addresses these issues, and she's probably much better to tell you what her book is about than I am. And I should say that if you go to Learning Together, I think it's tinyurl.com / Learning Together. You can read a lot about Shelley, what I put up there. I'll put the link in the text chat here, and we'll get a transcript for it. But anyway, basically, Shelley shares everything. The website is shelleyterrell.net. What's your website, Shelley?
And shelleyterrell.com, and then /MP as for Mission Possible. So MP.
Oh, okay. Oh, something about missions. Ever since Shelley was a moderator for the Electronic Village Online, she modeled in a wonderful way how to really run an online session, and everything she set up was a mission. So now I'm moderating EVO Minecraft MOOC, and my wiki site for that is called Missions for Minecraft, and so basically we call everything we do missions too. So this is one thing that has rubbed off on us, and a lot of us. We're mission oriented now. So Shelley, on that note, let me hand over to you. I should say also, if anybody else here wants to introduce themselves, they can, because I really like in Learning Together sessions to encourage people to talk to Shelley or interrupt her. I hope it's okay with Shelley.
Yes,
I don't think she minds. So we want to make this a conversation if we can. So if you want to start by grabbing the mic, and Tippy or Elizabeth, there are two people here. So if either of you wants to grab a mic and say something to us right now, go ahead.
Well, I just say hello. When I saw Vance and Shelley together, I said, good grief, I can't be sad. And I'll pass it on. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you, Big Bird.
Just gets better and better. And Tippy, would you like to say hi? And Tippy is from Athens. Elizabeth Ann is in Grenoble right now. So only 2 people showed up to see this amazing event. But anyway, we are recording it. It's recorded in Blackboard. It will produce an MP4, which I'll upload to YouTube. If the stream doesn't work, the stream is not doing very well. It's a bandwidth issue, I'm sure. Okay, Shelley, back to you.
Well, it's great to see TV and Elizabeth, because I've talked to them both virtually. I've actually met Elizabeth several times. We had a great time together when I was in Europe, so it was wonderful. And one of the reasons I wrote this book was actually inspired by Elizabeth, because when I was talking about the missions, and I've mentioned this for, I think it's been over 10 years, so even though this book took about 3 months, almost, 6 months to write, because I wrote it in 3 while I was with my daughter Savannah, my now turning 11-month-year-old. But when I began, then my publisher, who's fantastic, he's wonderful, really pushed out a great book. He pushed out my best work, but half of it wasn't good at the beginning, so I rewrote that. But when I was writing this in mind, there was a story by Elizabeth, so she might not know this, and I mentioned this actually a lot in all my presentations, when I was talking about the language at the beginning, when I used to say, okay, let's challenge students to do missions. I remember her telling me, and I hope I get this correct, but where you told me, Elizabeth, that you let your scientists, your students, other physicists and scientists in Chernobyl, and they even were keen to the idea of completing missions. And I thought, wow, if scientists are motivated by this, then that's actually very, very exciting. So hopefully I've gotten this little anecdote correct, because I've been using it. So let me know if I haven't, Elizabeth. But I do think that there's, and this is not just to change the language, although I think that that is very important. So with this book, what I really want to do is help teachers in the process of what I call mission-minded learning. And I've done this for quite a long time. It started with a book I wrote, I guess, 5 years ago, which is, or more, which is the 30 Goals Challenge. And with that one, it was to inspire teachers to give them little goals or missions or challenges, and then to have them complete those. And then Evo gave me a chance to use it a little bit more to see, what we could do at a wider scale. And that was always a great opportunity, especially learning with, with the mentorship of Elizabeth and Thea. So I really appreciate you both a lot, and I'm glad now they're using missions. That's really fantastic to hear. I think when we talk about Mission Possible, a lot of times in our schools we have work that we want students to do. Of course, learning itself is, it can be tedious. It's not always fun, and that's what I like about missions, is because you hear a lot out there about how let's act, and let's do this, and let's make learning fun and entertaining and juggle, and and not necessarily juggle, but I think we hear so many times how we have to make it entertaining, but or fun and dynamic, and it's how do we do that? But the thing is that learning isn't always like that. Actually, the best learning is a journey. I always like to think of it as if you're going hiking somewhere, climbing a mountain, or anything, an excursion. When you begin, you know this much about yourself. You know this, portion of yourself. And then when you finish that journey, and that journey will present you with several obstacles. You never know what's going to happen, and it just comes at you, and you have to take all that knowledge inside your mind, and then and your skills and everything you learned to that point, and even things everybody else has learned, thankfully, you'll come with everyone, you'll have that journey with others, and then they'll really help you get through that journey. Or all that knowledge combined is what's going to help you. And I see that as a hero journey, but also with students, it brings out the best of them. It lets them know, okay, this is what I had in me the whole time. I had to use it in this class, or to do this, wonderful project or mission or challenge. I had to use it to complete it. And now I know that I have that in me. And so I think that's the difference between when we just walk into a classroom and we have just and definitely a lot of teachers don't just do that. They don't just have students walk in and just, okay, here, sit down, read the book. I think it is more like a mission. So I think it's proper to term it Mission Possible. Another reason why I wrote this particular book was because of this beautiful little girl who's now going to be 11 months. She grows so big all the time, who's my little mini me. My little play on words there, but mini me. And her name is Savannah. And when we think about our students these days, Savannah is already FaceTiming. She FaceTimes with her cousin. She FaceTimes who's just 28 days younger than her. my sister's first baby too. So she's FaceTiming with her grandma here, and her grandma still doesn't know how to FaceTime too well, so grandma only shows her top of her head whenever we're away. We're usually with my mom, so my mom's in San Antonio and while I'm teaching and stuff, so we get to spend a lot of time with her, but when I'm on trips or anything like that, we FaceTime, and it's funny, the generation gap too, because for us, things like this are things we try, and they're fun for us. I know, Vance, I see you often FaceTiming, things like that as well. So, you know, we get it, but it's funny because for them it'll be very second nature. She's already doing this as a baby. And I did read studies because I feel like even though you are, even though you use technology, you have to do the research and just make sure that, especially for my daughter growing up, I want to make sure I use it properly and expose it at the right time. So I think that's very important. And so I've read actually lots of research that supports that FaceTiming is extremely good for babies because they can see reactions, and so that's all good. With her father and I too, he's a teacher, I'm a teacher, I travel, you know, with the writing and everything, a lot of people wonder how you can do these things, but technology is really beautiful in that it does have so many benefits. Before, you know, it's good to look at both, you know, to have that balance, but the technology shows the research that, especially with FaceTiming, conferencing, and all of that's in the book as well, but that the babies really react. And there is a video that I have on Facebook where you just see her interacting with her dad. Her dad is going and like blowing kisses and stuff, and she's just, it's really amazing to see her reactions because it's a little tiny screen, you know, it's a little screen, but she's seeing all of this and she's modeling, and it goes back to even traditional or very theories that we learned a long time ago, TPR, total physical response. She sees him kiss, she blows a kiss. It's so adorable. And so I really love that, you know, we're able to capture that, but that for her, you can see the learning coming out of that. She's making these connections. Her cousin that's finally coming in December, she's had lots of conversations with. And for our learners, that's what it is even before they're born, they don't get a choice whether they get a digital footprint. And so I tend to meet some people who say, okay, even parents or administrators or, you know, who will say, well, I just won't let my child use, get access to the internet, or we won't have phones, or we don't have devices. But that's not a solution anymore because a lot of our learners don't get a choice in the digital footprint, unfortunately. So here, even before Savvy was born, you can see 585 or more people liked her photo, knew about her, saw a picture of her, even before she was born. And for most of our learners, whether it is, thank you, Glenn, for stopping by. Thank you so much. When our learners come up, they don't get a choice because their friends might post pictures of them. They might send a text message, and it might be taken out of context and show it to the whole school. They might show a picture that they didn't mean for everyone to see. Maybe it was even accidental that was placed up, and the whole entire world could have access to it. And that is the unfortunate reality. So there are very, very good things about this connection. We're able to see each other across the world. We're able to open our minds, be global citizens, understand each other, learn each other languages from each other. But there are also some very, very scary things. And so it's really important that instead of saying we're going to shut off the technology, we're not going to, and that we also at the same time are able to walk our learners through the process of what it means to make a meaningful footprint, what it means to the things that you can control, the things that you can put out there, that once you're part of that online world, there are very important things that you need to know, roles you automatically are going to be expected to play. And so that's what I really hope with each mission, it's them, not only them accomplishing a mission, not only in them making a meaningful difference in their community and in their learning and the learning of others, but it's also that making a difference, playing that role to the best of their ability. And we'll talk about those roles, but one of the things that I think is important is if we put this digital bingo behind their board, this board in front of us, which you all have, and maybe I'll give you, you have access to the whiteboard tool, so you can go ahead and you can click on it if it's you, or you can even put like a little point or something, like a check mark or something, those in here, of which ones would you be able to check off. Now, I know Elizabeth would make, and in teaching and dance, you all would definitely make bingo because you all definitely have done a lot of these things, which I think is fantastic as being a connected educator. So one thing that I do tell teachers is definitely try, to be a connected educator. Connect on Facebook or Twitter or Learning Time or Evo sessions or eTwinning. I don't know if he does that, and some other, and these online communities where you are able to learn all of this together with people from all over the world. We have Greece, France, the UAE, and the U.S. all in one room, which is pretty exciting and amazing, and we learn from each other. And we're able to cross off this. And it's important to make bingo these days. It's important to make digital bingo. So it looks like a game, but every time you can cross off one of these, then you have an understanding of one of the things your students are already doing. And if we don't understand what they're doing, then how can we lead them through that? If they're going to start, so for example, just very traditional things like dating. Dating is very, very different these days. And, I learned that quite quickly before my daughter was ever born or anything like that. I mean, it was really great. I met another teacher, but before that, I did have a little bit of a snap into modern dating, like a little glimpse, and I realized like even dating was quite different. And for our learners, that's the thing, making friends is quite different than it used to be. Staying in touch with family and friends, there's so many differences now, even with our routines and the way we learn and communicate. So the more that we know, even if it's just stories, then that's great, because then we're really able to help our students through this and figure it out. Even research, now we have things like, Pinterest. And my mother, it's funny because she's not that great at, doing a lot of things. But she loves Pinterest, and she is just a pinner. She pins about 50 things a day. So I think that's really exciting. She may not have mastered FaceTime yet, as Savvy has, but she has mastered pinning. And so I think it's really interesting when we are able to add to that knowledge. And look how the board is just with us already, how most of us have already made. We've made the B. I see the bingo B. I see definitely, or actually I think I've seen all of the bingo now. Everybody's made this, except the flash mob. I've made all of these bingos. I've made it a point to, since I wrote a book about it. So even things that I've been very nervous about, I've tried as well. But when we think of even the language, and so some of this points out, so we'll go to the next slide, that how our digital behavior, what our students do online, what we do online. It's hard to just say learners, because teachers as well, with our families, our sisters, our cousins, our brothers, our parents, everything we do online impacts our rituals, learning, values, communication routines, and language. So if we go back to the previous slide, you can see here, for example, where we have right here, if you look here where it says knows what LOL, SMH, TH mean, too much to handle, shaking my head. LOL, it's really great. It's funny, I hear this anecdote whenever I see Steve Wheeler, Timbuktu. He does this great keynote, and he talks about LOL, and he talks about this really funny story about his father or grandfather who thought it was lots of love, and because it used to be lots of love. So even things that we think that we know change constantly. I learned that with my learners. In fact, I have to go teach later on today, but my learners, they love to just walk in, my college freshmen, and say, Miss, do you know what this means, Miss? And I have no clue. And I'm pretty keen on digital things, but I have no clue what some of the things mean. And so it's good to be constantly in that learning, but it does show you how it definitely changed language. You know, a snap. What is a snap now? Well, that's part of Snapchat. It's not no longer. You know, this is what I think of with snapping, but that's not usually a snap. Tweet, you know, a little bird going, Rocky Robin, tweet, tweet-a-wee. But that's not what it necessarily means to most learners anymore. And so it's great to be able to see how all of this evolves, and it's really important, more important that we know. It's important that we're aware of this, and other learners are aware as well, because they get to decide, you know, whether they like the changes, and if they don't, then what are they going to do about it? And that's important. All of this shows as well the different roles that they play, and they'll play citizen scientists. Elizabeth, you might like that because you work with scientists. But science is now evolved. Science has gone where it crowdsources. Anyone can come. They've made apps where it's really made it exciting to where you can contribute to science. So you're learning even something such as data entry, evaluating maps, playing a game, and the data that comes out of that game. Your learners could all go play a game right now, and that data could be used for some really important research. And so all of that's covered in the book. YouTuber, and I'll talk a little about that. Annotation. My students, I make them do that all the time. They annotate, you know, so many readings because it's so important these days. And you do that with a mobile device. You can take a picture, you can highlight it. Even here we annotate. Here, you know, we can add a little smiley face and, next to a key idea, a word we don't know, a word we want explained, we can highlight it. We can use text to go ahead and write a note about it. You know, we could write something like, oh, annotation, she said that it means to mark up, so that's what it means, and then I could write that up, mark up. So that's what annotation is, by the way. Crowdsourcing, and the power of the crowd to help us raise funds if we need supplies in the classroom. I know schools that need toilet paper, they need, you know, books in the library, just basic supplies, and now they're able to put a crowdfund campaign, and the book talks about that. It talks about how students can be part of, you know, making that and raising funds and getting supplies for their school. Fake news, and we hear about that all the time, how there are responsibilities and ethics involved in being journalists, because now anyone can be a journalist, anyone can post pictures on social networks and use a hashtag and report on an event. And there are a lot of events, for example, floods, and we hear about the tsunamis and all of these disasters, and people are the main journalists for that. They're the main reporters. So these are just all roles that we play. At any time, Vance or anyone, you can feel to interrupt me or ask questions or anything. I'm more than welcome to answer any questions and stuff. So with mission-minded learning, it's taking students to the journey of completing digital missions. The book calls them EdTech missions, but they're digital learning missions. They're missions that do involve some form of technology, whether it's the thinking of technology. So some of them could be paper. You could do them. You can complete these missions any way you want with any kind of materials you have. Even if you don't have technology, we have made it, and that was one of the reasons why I rewrote like maybe half the book, because my publisher, Mark Barnes, was really great in push issue, but he said, you know, we need to make this very practical because some teachers are not going to be allowed to use social media in their school. So when I wrote this, and he said, okay, you have to solve this problem where some can't. So we made a paper social network as well. So there's over 24 kinds of things, kits, a mission kit, toolkit, where we try to find possibilities for you to accomplish each mission with your students. A mission could be something that you would practice in 1 year, or you could do several missions. You could take a mission every year or just several missions, whichever is practical for you. And they do work with all kinds of learners. There's 10 missions in this book, and students can receive 10 badges for the missions. They're all in there, the badges and the little mission cards that you get. You'll see what those look like. And the process is pretty outlined pretty well, and that's what I really liked about the Hacker Learning book, and why I decided to go this route, because as Dan was saying earlier, it's pretty simple as far as the, it's not this simple, but it just walks you through the steps pretty in the most easiest way that I thought would be translatable. It's hard sometimes when you have all these ideas in your head, and you want to make sure that people are able to adapt them, but also, have the skills and everything to be able to complete what you envision, and students as well. So we try to make it as easy or best way for people to be able to do that. And so there's a mission delivery where you send the mission card. And one of the things I like to do, I don't know if it's going to work in here. I should have practiced this earlier, because you're not going to hear it as well. But now in my talks, and I'm in Boston, but when I come out in a talk, I actually play this music in the background. I don't know if you can hear it. So I don't know if you heard that. I can go ahead and put it in the chat box, but I come out and that's what I play, which is the Mission Impossible theme. And then I come out and say, okay, I'm sending all of you on a mission. You are here. If you came to this session, you may have known that you were chosen and selected to complete some various missions within the session. And I give them actual sticker badges in the session. So it's a lot of fun being able to talk about this as well. But there's a mission, that's part of the mission delivery, and you can do that any way you want. And I envision it so many ways, that I want to be able to do this where I can even do like create those snap videos about it, and then it just like explode, or little videos in general, and then they explode and disappear, because I think that would be fun, where they get like little folders, the vanilla folder of information, like a spy, and they're able to see, what is the mission, and then there's always, because I always think of Mission Possible and spy movies, because I love spy movies, and they always get like that vanilla folder, or then it just, or a little video message and it explodes, it goes away. But they always have some kind of mission prep. There's always some kind of, and that involves like tech training or tool training. So every, even a superhero, if they're completing a mission, anyone who completes a mission, there's clergy that completes missions, there's soldiers that complete missions, there's astronauts that complete missions. So when you think about that process itself of completing a mission, you realize that you have to know the tools, and every mission is different. It's not the same tool is not going to be used necessarily for another one. You build off your training, so there is training involved, whether it's, in spy movies, it's fighting or weapons, or, and there's always investigation as well. But for an astronaut, it's different too. For an astronaut, it might be, they have to learn about gravity, and they have to train themselves to be in that kind of environment. So there's always some kind of technology training. And so I think that's the way we should think of technology integration, that when you are completing a mission, it's just part of completing that mission. You have to learn the tools or what you're using to be able to complete the mission in the best way you can. There's always investigation, which is research, but we call it investigation stage. And in that point, you always learn about, sometimes they call it the target with missions, with spies, but, when you are doing, when you do have to go complete a mission in space, it's the same thing. There's investigation. You have to investigate that planet. You have to kind of understand, the gravity, the atmosphere. You have to be able to get the right vest and things like, the right uniform and things like that. Clergy, you have to investigate the region you're going to be at. You have to investigate the language. So depending what kind of, hero in a way, but also a person that's completing this mission, there's always going to be a research and investigation as part of that, because that's going to help you complete the mission. The more you know, the more you're able to complete the mission. And then there's finally the mission launch. So after you do all of this prep and training and investigation because you want to, and that's the thing, is that when you're given a mission and you give students a mission, they work harder, they work more, they want to be able to do all of this. So they understand that even with the game, they understand the more, you go through all of this, the more, things you collect and all of that, then you have to be able, that's the way you complete missions. And so we know for something really grand, which a mission is, you have to put in the legwork, the footwork, you have to put in the hard work, because the more you know, and the more skills you have, and that's what I should say, the more you're skilled, that's the way learners think of it. The more they're skilled, the better they are when it's finally that mission, that moment in the game, even when you come against, to save the princess or something like that. If you have all of those skills and everything, those badges, then you're able to complete that mission better. So, and then there's this dissemination, and I actually learned about dissemination from working on EU projects. So I worked on several EU projects, and I had never really heard of dissemination before. But there's Joel, and I forgot Joel's last name right now. I always think of it, AcerView is his last. It's always AcerV52 or something, his Twitter name. And so Joel really, he talks about dissemination all the time, and I really like this word because it's just kind of the best word too. So after you complete a mission, there's always dissemination. There's always someone, and there's always an evaluation. There's always seeing, did the mission fail? If it did, why? If the mission wasn't so successful, why? If the mission was successful, why? Because we're going to keep completing missions. So in any kind of mission that you complete, because it's such a grand thing, because it impacts so many, and that's the way learning is, then you do have to go back, and you have to, it's good to go back with the kids. Disseminate means spread the word, and in social media that's even more important, because every mission that's completed, even if it's a secret mission we find nowadays, it does get publicized on social media. So it's always good to know about the PR, how we're going to talk about that mission. So in a lot of the missions in the books, we do give the option, you can do a press release, let the teachers, let the school community know, let the parents know. And then it can even be more than that. In one of the stories in the book, Andrea Santelli works with her fourth graders, I believe, or no, seventh graders, and they created this iBook about, it's the citizen science ones, and they did a field guide of Florida. And Andrea, when I was interviewing her and grabbing her story because I read it somewhere else, they had like over 60,000, it was considered a bestseller, their book about their region. They just told about the animals, the plants, they put pictures in there, and it's considered a bestseller, even though it's, for free. But this guide is considered a bestseller by seventh graders. They're best-selling authors already once they left her classroom. And so that's pretty amazing. So dissemination is definitely a big part. We have to realize that publishing students' work is so important, because they need to understand that if they make decisions about it, they reflect on it, they get to decide where that goes and how it's publicized, and how people around the world see it. And that's something they have to think about, their messages. They need to think more and reflect more on dissemination, because everything that they post now gets spread and is shared. So if they're making decisions about it, then that's better. So this is what things look like. I'll show you a quick mission. design a game walkthrough. It was inspired. There's 10 examples as well, 10 stories of practical ways teachers all over the world are using this, and TP is one of them, so that's really. But I do want to share one from one of our other favorites people in the world, which is Mariana Schmalzek at MS Caroline, and her son, when I went to go visit her in Augulin, you know, Philip over here, Schmalzek, he runs, he's a YouTuber. And it's funny because I learn a lot from when asking students, you know, and learners. In every place I've gone to, I always ask students. I spend a lot more time with the kids, you'll see sometimes, than I do with the adults. And yes, they're so cute, both of them, Domi. And it was great because when I hang out with the children, I learn so much from them. They just blow my mind. And they keep teaching me because, of course, they know more about this world than I have, you know, that I can, even with studying all this, or any of us can, even being in the midst of all this. And all of us here are actually very keen on technology, but even teachers who aren't, you don't have to feel like you're the only ones who feel left behind all the time, because I always feel like I'm learning as well. And I'm keeping up too, but it's great to ask the learners because they understand a lot more. And so they inspired this as well. So Philip, and he's been so great. He just said, you know, let them know about my YouTube channel. But when I met Philip, he was, so Vance just spent time with them. But Domi and Philip, and Domi was 6, and I think Philip was 8 or 9 at the time. And now they're much older, but Philip had told me about the world of YouTubers, and told me, it's funny because Domi, he's 6, and they both spoke perfect English, being in this little small town. But it wasn't just about that; it was how much they knew, and they were full of ideas, and I mean, they were just communicating with me nonstop, you know, about everything, about Angry Birds and Minecraft, and here's a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and so it really opened me to the world, and I've heard more since this study. But YouTube is one of those, one of the most popular, oldest social networks that it is out there. And people create videos, they watch videos by others, and now our learners actually make, you know, a living out of it. They make money. Some of them, that's their living. They actually make thousands and millions of dollars doing this. Some that are very young. Philip's known all over the world. His, you know, Sneak Gaming 12, they watch his video tutorials of Minecraft. And so one of the, that's what it was inspired to make a video game walkthrough, because that's what he does. He goes and he walks through, he adds commentary, he learns things like, and if you think about the process of it, this 9-year-old doing this on his own, and learning how to, and he said he was inspired by others. He told me he started by looking on YouTube, and he saw he looked because he wanted to learn more about Minecraft, which is a game he loves, and then he saw these video tutorials and said, wow, I want to do this as well. So he started doing it in English and learning English, and he learned completely through YouTube. English and stuff, and it was just amazing that this 9-year-old is telling me all about this, and I'm like, my mind is blown. So he's part of that story. He's you know, exemplar for that, and he it's great to be able to think about, you know, what's the learning that goes behind this, because you might think making a YouTube video isn't, but this is recently what I did with my learners. They had to make their own DIY videos. They did such a good job. And I teach writing. I teach English. And part of this was process analysis. This is actually called process analysis writing. You have to describe a process. And now that's something that our students do. They do DIY videos. It may not be how to play Minecraft. It might be how to put on makeup. And then and I actually know a teenage girl that I watch, one of the YouTubers, and she makes millions of dollars. She started when she was 16, and she shows you how to put on makeup, different kinds of makeup, from Japan, from being a Chicana like me. I come from San Antonio, so that's why I started watching her, because we thought the videos were really funny because they show how to do Chicana makeup. And so anyway, so my students do this. They did such a great job, and that was a way that they do process analysis writing, which is something that does come from an English textbook, but I've tried to make into how does it fit into their world. So this storyboard here is one of the mission toolkit items that comes along with accomplishing this mission, where students think of a game, they put down the game scene, how they're going to make their videos, and then they plan the video, and then they write the instructions. And so for this activity, and we're about to wrap up soon, but I want you to think for this particular type of mission, how would you, and we can think of together, let's say we're going to ask people to learn how to play tic-tac-toe. And so what would be the instructions that you give here? So how would we start? Any ideas here? You can write this in the chat box. So how would you start? What would be, where could we start here as a group on, what would be our first instruction? We're trying to teach others how to play tic-tac-toe. Any ideas?
I guess I would tell people, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Well, the object of the game is to get 3 of your marks in a row. And so starting from what the object is, you try to do that by putting your first mark anywhere, and then the next person tries to block you from making 3 marks in a row, and tries also to get his 3 marks in a row, or her 3 marks in a row. And so that's kind of the rules of the game, but I think that's probably all we knew. And also another thing you should always do is start in the middle. Everybody knows that.
And then Elizabeth said use one
Anybody
of us
else
is
have any
O,
ideas
and the
for how to
other is
teach that?
X. Okay. So I think you can see here, even us deciding, and Elizabeth says in the chat box, one of us is O and one of us is X. So even playing tic-tac-toe, when we're giving instructions, it's that part of, okay, how do we translate to everyone there? And all of us, the great thing is when you have students get together and they do something like this, how to play tic-tac-toe or something as a class, it doesn't matter if, so you want to collect all their statements because then you can figure out which order to put it in, because that's process analysis. But that's so important these days, being able to express digitally. And it's great because we do have videos, DIY videos, but we want to see how effective those instructions are. I think GE, General Electric, does one of the best DIY, kind of projects, and it inspires. What it does is it has little 6-second videos, and Bill Nye the Science Guy works with them, and they actually show you how to complete in 6 seconds different types of experiments, which I just think is amazing. But even then, that if you think about it, you really think, it's called 6-second science, by the way. You can see they put emojis and everything. Bill Nye has longer explanations that are over 2 minutes long. They're about 2.5 minutes with emojis, and so it's really great content for learning. But if we think about even a video, students have to edit that. They need to, they may have tons of ways to show how to complete tic-tac-toe. But even in the video, they have to be able to condense that. They have to be able to summarize it, put it in 6 seconds. The most important part. So it's, these are skills that are out there and that are needed. And so the missions really deal with that as well. It's not only the knowledge of tech, it's not only the knowledge, the learning behind it. We learn writing, so I hope you see in here it is, writing, a type of writing that they do learn, but so they could meet the objective. The objective or the standard might be, in being able to learn like the dynamics of, or the, analyze and evaluate process analysis writing, or being able to complete graphic organizers that deal with giving instructions, instructional language. You can, add the jargon in it, but it also teaches them how to have an editing eye, which is very important. These are digital skills that are also needed because our students might be doing this already. Philip started this when he was 9 or even younger, 8 or 7, but who's teaching him how to have an editing eye? Who's teaching him how to, which instructions are the best, or to evaluate that? Or is he learning this with years and years as he goes? And when he is learning this, he's making mistakes, and they're very public mistakes. And, with the game, that's fine. But when you're doing something else and millions of people are seeing it, that may not be so fine. That might be overwhelming for a student or a learner. It may be very overwhelming to all of a sudden, be a very popular being, have over 100,000 followers and stuff that watch you, and then they point out your mistakes. So, or that you're not sure what to do next. You just started doing this for fun, and now you need the skill behind it. So I think teachers definitely play a role in that. And finally, just to talk about badges, because that's the last thing, although there's many more missions, but one of them is something as simple. So not all of them are so techy. Some of them are something like design a badge to recognize one of your peers. And students can draw that. You can upload that. They can just hand them out through, stickers or anything like that. But I do think it's really important that students to be able to recognize values, and we go back to what kind of values do they want in the world, and everything they do digitally impacts that. Everything we do digitally impacts that. That shows, if we like something and it's a joke made on somebody else, or it's fake news or anything like that, then those are the values we are responsible for and we have spread, even just by liking, even just by commenting. And that's something that everyone has to own. I often see memes and pics, and I think they're very funny. I just crack up at some of the things. And sometimes I just enjoy them, but I try to really evaluate what I spread by liking, what I put in somebody else's news feed by liking it now, because we are responsible for that. So digital badges is one way that students can recognize values that in their peers that they like. Things like helping each other, kindness, taking lead, being a good team player, creating good work. They can recognize when someone does a really great job at a presentation. I noticed that that's something really important for my students, just taking the time when they can recognize their peers and the time they took, the dedication they put to a project instead of getting it done so fast. Their editing eye, valuing editors in today's society. I think editors play a really, really important, great role with all the digital content out there. And so with each of these missions, even if it's just that you saw this today and you want to go ahead and call, your next wiki or anything a mission, or just go to and think of your next project and think how you can make it a mission. And that's really what I hope to inspire by all of this, is that people and teachers and learners will take on missions to make the world a better place. And that technology is one vehicle through that, and the most powerful vehicle we have, because it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if you're in a very small village now that only has one, mobile device that the whole village shares. You have the ability to complete meaningful missions and to really impact the world. And I think it is important that we walk into a classroom, administrators, teachers, and even parents let learners know that. It's important to let them know now, anything you do with this device makes a difference in the world. It impacts everyone around them. And they have to own that responsibility, and they have to do great things. It is their mission to do really great things in the world with their use of technology. And in the book, I do mention, and I'll mention now, for my daughter, and that was my daughter there, that was the first plane flight when we flew to Kino I had in Memphis, so I do take her with me to a lot of conferences. I can't let her go. She's just so wonderful. But I'm hoping her teachers put her in a lot of missions too, because although I would like to think that every student that I I see, I would want them to think, I would want them to be like Kid President, who has, hundreds of thousands of followers. And every day, this is what he spreads. Things like, it's a super Monday, make wise choices, be kind, make a better life, dance, boogie, and be awesome. But more than likely, my students, unless I'm putting them on these missions, unless I'm making an effort for them to reflect and to do great things and telling them and and inspiring them to do great things with technology. If I'm not letting them use technology in the classroom, if I'm not inspiring them to do great things with the technology, or I'm not inspiring them to care about what they do in the world with the technology, then chances are they're not kid present. Chances are they're going to be one of the millions who are adding to cyberbullying, fake news, not spreading peace, not being accepting of others. And so I think it's really important, especially for my daughter. I want to make sure that, I inspire her to be someone more like kid president and do really great things with their technology. So if you were here today and if you saw this, then you get to get your own digital badge because that's only fair. About learning about being a mission-minded teacher and learner. So you can just scan that, and then you can find it. You can find all the resources here at shellyterrell.com/MP as well, including a bigger or a longer version of this presentation and stuff. So Beth, I know you wanted to interview or ask me some other questions, so I don't know if I covered everything or if anybody else has questions for me.
I'd like to ask if anyone present has any questions before I jump in. I have a few questions, but anyhow, anybody else first?
Yeah, no, I don't actually have any questions. It's nice to hear so much positive thinking. Since I'm not teaching anymore, I'm now applying my mission is now concerned by trees and things like this, and it's very, very useful, the things we can use online, even sort of outside of teaching. It's amazing. So sorry if I have any questions.
Well, I don't know if you heard me earlier, but I've been seeing your trees on Instagram. I just got on Instagram again, and I'm always liking your trees. And thank you, NTV. And TV contributed to the one about being a global citizen and shared her story of her E20. So thank you so much for being here.
And maybe, can I just read off the 10 missions that you put a video up here? Yeah, because I mean, it's really a nice list, and we should have a record, because you talked about the philosophy behind the missions, which was really interesting. Something you don't. Well, I mean, you get it when you read the books. You see where you're coming from and how you're challenging students to do things themselves and learn by doing, and also to integrate the world that they encounter from an early age, as you've shown with Savvy. How you can make this digital tools work for you. So here are the 10 missions. The first one is design a game walkthrough. I've done a bit of that with my students. I really like game walkthroughs. One I've designed with them is starts with an S. Yeah, it's a little planet where it's got a funny character.
As it does, and yeah, I think Carol Rainbow wrote one, a game walkthrough about that too, Centauri or Sand. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, gosh, we'll remember. It'll come to me after we sign off. Anyway, the walkthroughs are really nice, and Graham Stanley also has done a lot with game walkthroughs. And the second one is go on a selfie adventure. So define yourself through images. That's kind of neat. Do you want to say anything about that one?
Well, that one I usually talk about a lot. We put a free template and everything that's on the side, but on that one it is, and I would have showed, I'm going to be doing this next week in Minnesota, but we are going to complete selfie adventures, and that is basically about thinking about being the role we play as soon as we enter the world, whether it's 2 or 3 or whenever we join a network, Savvy just woke up, you can hear, but then you also realize that that students need to reflect and understand. They always need to go through that process, and too many times they're not, of what their identity is in the world. So that's what it gets them to do. It gets them to go away from, because what happens is their identity, their self-identity in the digital world is usually, because they didn't reflect on it, because they didn't make those decisions ahead of time, is usually for them to be able to, it's tied to their peers, and so it's a way to get them to really come up with their own identity and be strong in who they are and their beliefs and values when they are part of any digital community that they join.
Can I just interrupt? I must say that what really impressed me about the book was that all of the time I've been complaining that the teachers have just demissioned. I don't think that's the right word. Can I say demissioned? They have left the internet world to the students, and therefore there are all of these dreadful mistakes. And there are so many teachers I know who are not willing to go there because they don't feel safe there. And I think this selfie adventure, selfie mission is really great, because no one can deny that the students are doing it, and it really makes them think about what they are doing. Very easy.
And I think what you said in the chat box, you said the selfie adventure is a great introductory activity for teachers. I agree. That's why usually I do that. That's always what I do physically. And it's funny because I have a lot of pictures of me with selfies. And so sometimes I've gotten questions like about some other teachers about my self-esteem, which goes to show like there's a lot of misunderstanding out there. But I think that, it is important for us to reflect and be comfortable with, or at least understand, why students do this.
Okay, well, that one ties in with the next one, which is create a fictional social media profile. So in both of these, you have to manage your social media profile, either your own or fictional characters. It also puts me in mind of people taking characters, say, in a Shakespeare play or a historical event, and becoming someone as Gramps, someone as Lee, that kind of thing, tweeting about it. I'll just go on. The other one, number 4, remix learning into a digital textbook. Actually, Shelley's EVO session was on e-textbooks, e-books, create your own e-book. I don't remember the exact name of that session. Can you remind me,
that was
Shelley?
actually, we changed it a lot, but it was that. It was eBook Evo. That was the hashtag. I was part of that too. I think in TBT, but I actually used an example from a teacher there who is a moderator in that session. So I guess Evo has really helped with a lot of these missions, accomplishing them first and getting great examples, because it was Andre Spang, who Elizabeth and NTC are familiar with, and Dan, she might be, but he's from Germany, and he's a fantastic. He remixes all the time. In fact, that's one of his models, I think, is remix.
The next two, about debating issues respectfully, that's a good one. And the one after that, seek and preserve the truth, which is about countering fake news, really. Share digital news stories accurately. That's a very important issue these days. Number 7, easy for all of us, assemble a global class meeting. So we've done a lot of that. Enlighten the world as a citizen scientist. Appreciate others with a digital badge. Shelley is modeling that for us right now. And this is the last one, very interesting, crowdfund an innovation to find solutions. So, actually have the students choose something that needs a solution, and then propose a solution, and just put it up to see if, not to see if you can fund it, but to see if you can learn by describing it and putting it out there. I guess that's the main idea, right? Has anybody ever made any actual money from that?
Yeah, actually, in the book, the one who inspired it, I was actually speaking last year quite a bit in Canada, and Colleen Rose, who's part of that, and a student sent me a video. So the way that that was inspired is, of course, I've seen lots of this occur, crowdfund campaigns, but what's really interesting is the way her students jumped to it. So her students, they were learning and they did mind mapping about the food problem in Canada. So it was a local problem they were already researching. And when they did the mind map and everything, they were coming up with solutions because it's very complicated. And that was that's one of the issues here too in the book, is that how we need to investigate answers more. We need to spend problems. We need to spend more time with problems and not be so obsessed with answers. And so with the crowdfunding, the kids actually came up with that. Her students did. After they had investigated and they thought of different solutions that might be possible, they said, we actually want to implement a solution. Is there something we can do to actually raise money? And so with that, when you do a crowdfund campaign, you don't realize the math and the writing and all the other skills involved. And that's what I think is important for this too, is that sometimes we try to complicate things and we think, okay, well, it's not related to science or it's not related. But a lot of these missions do include a lot of math and science, and it's us just trying to find a way to get that to the students as well. But the students did raise money, and when they disseminated, they put the PR about it. They actually had the local Rotary. So the students didn't raise like tons of money on the crowdfund campaign, but they found a solution. They decided what they wanted to make their crowdfund campaign about. They raised the money to actually carry out that solution and to give. They identified the organization that would help them carry out the solution for the hunger. And it wasn't like an end-all solution. It didn't end, hunger there, but it did help with the problem. And then they had guest speakers come to talk about it, to give them more kind of mentorship for their crowdfund campaign. And then the local Rotary Club actually went and funded the rest. So it was really wonderful that the students got to see all that, that they got to be a part of a solution, and that it really did work. It did go through helping their community.
It's really cool. I mean, that's so real life. That's what the neat thing about this book and these digital learning strategies are. They're very authentic and personal and engaging. And my favorite part of the book was reading about Philip, because I went to Croatia as well and stayed with him and his family. And he's been also a moderator he's into his 4th year now on the EBO Minecraft book. So he's our youngest moderator, obviously. And he's kind of getting into making his own games these days, and coding and into game. I think his channel is Snake Gaming, and now he's sort of doing his own game. So he's really quite a precocious character. And his young brother, Domagoy, you called him Domi. Domi was really engagingly articulate in English. I was so surprised. And of course, these kids are learning English like native speakers. That was actually our initial focus with him. I posted the link in the chat to an article that he and his mom wrote. His mother basically interviewed him about how he was learning English through Minecraft. And so it's amazing, the possibilities and the positive feedback he gets from being mentioned in this book, more than a paragraph, and also engaging with adults in Minecraft, and actually being one of the stars of the show because he's so good at it, and he's also very whimsical. He likes to throw a lot of rabbits around, and confuse people and play little jokes on people. So we kind of like having him around. So
I didn't know he was a moderator now.
What?
That's so exciting to hear that he's a moderator now.
For
Now
the
I
last
have
4
to
years, we
join.
started in yeah.
Mariana, but I know,
Yeah.
every time I talk to Mariana, she doesn't tell me
you
all the
look up with
wonderful
me. You
things
get in
that they're
Minecraft and you
doing.
can,
I think I'm going to start doing that now. I'm going to have to join your Minecraft Evo just so I can see these rabbits and stuff.
why not? And do more missions.
Yeah.
And get badges. Yeah. So I don't know if anybody has any more questions. I have just one more question. Does anybody have any questions before I ask it? I don't want to take too much of Shelley's time because I know that Savvy is up and she probably needs to get with Savvy. My question is just, how's Roscoe doing these days? We don't see Roscoe anymore.
Well, Roscoe,
How is he?
unfortunately, I had to rush him to the vet yesterday. He got a little hurt, so I didn't put it on Facebook this time, but he's on 2 weeks of pain meds and antibiotics. He got himself in a little bit of a scuttle these days, so but he's doing good. He's very healthy. The doctors take very good care of him. And we actually have, he has another dog friend that he's been with quite a bit. So he's getting ready for the holidays. He's a little bit of an older dog. So unfortunately, him and his sister play a lot, but they don't like to take so many pictures together. It's hard to always get one of them to sit still next to each other. One of them's always going this way and the other. They chase each other around the house. I put one video up there where you can see him jumping across, and Savvy's just like giggling and giggling while that's usually what the house looks like, is she's running to go grab it, and he's running away from her, and she's giggling.
Yeah, and you asked, do you have any online friends you've never met, or do you have any friends but you've never met? And I wrote on that thing, Shelley. Shelley's my friend I've never met. I met Anne Grenoble in Marrakesh at a conference, but she was also an online friend for some time. So maybe one of these days we'll meet, but it's really nice that you've come on Learning Together to talk with us and tell us
it was a
about
great
the interesting things you do. Yeah, we could go on for an hour or two, maybe another time. But I should let you get back to your day.
Yes,
And,
thank you all so
really
much.
Nice to
And I'll definitely be sharing the video because I think a lot will want to see this, especially since I'll be presenting on this a lot. So it's still a kind of, this helped me get my thoughts together, especially since I have to do this again at St. Paul. I mean, in Minnesota, I think St. Paul soon, so, or somewhere. But thank you so much for this great conversation.
Yeah, we'll have an MP4 from the Blackboard chat because I can get the MP4 and an MP3. I can get those out of the Blackboard, the Illuminate side actually. What used to be Illuminate still is, and as far as the recordings are concerned. But I also got a stream going, and it's just doing crazy things. It just keeps going round and round. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. But anyhow, well, thank you very much. It's really nice talking to you and interacting with you as usual. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me. And next time you're in Houston, you gotta let me know because I go between both places, San Antonio and Houston. So.
Okay. Yeah. We'll.
Yeah,
maybe this summer. Maybe we'll be there this summer.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, that'd be great to hook up with you, so we can. We can do a live at that time.
Well, bye everyone. Okay.
Well, thanks very much. This is Learning Together, episode 379, the 29th of November, 2017. We've been talking to Shelley Terrell, the one and only, and we could just go on forever, so we're going to arbitrarily stop now. Thanks, everybody. And before I can, well, I can stop the recording any time, but everyone has to leave the room before I can leave the chat myself. So thanks again, Shelley.
Bye.
Okay.